Alright, so welcome back again. What we're going to talk about today is object-oriented programming in JavaScript. To be honest, a lot of people don't use objects in JavaScript because you don't have to, right? So you can make functions are first-class citizens in the language, right? So you can make functions and you can make variables. And to be honest, it's a lot like C in that regard. And that you can really do a lot with just like these global variables and global functions. If you namespace something, you don't have to worry about putting the global namespace. And you can do a lot without objects. But there comes a time where you start making bigger and bigger projects, and you want some encapsulation, right? It turns out object-oriented programming is really popular because it has certain advantages. So we're going to teach you some things about object-oriented programming with JavaScript. So what we're going to be talking about is how JavaScript uses a prototype chain to do their classes and how they make objects. We're also going to be getting some practice in creating our own classes and building up a few of these things. I think that's really the best way to learn is kind of by example. So we're going to be providing an example. We're going to be doing some bank account things. We're going to make a class called bank account. If your eyes happen to be really good, we'll do things like giving a name to an account, setting the balance, depositing money, withdrawing money, things like that. So really this is all about the syntax to kind of get started with classes. In this video, we're just going to make a constructor and then we'll make some more methods next time. So to get started, it's the same as always, right? Go visit the GitHub link, download the zip, put it into your static folder if your web devs links. I'll let you go do those things. So once you've got it extracted, you should be able to come into Eclipse and refresh your static folder. And you should have the JavaScript objects pop in right along with everything else. You can see that there's a couple of different exercises in here, and we're going to go ahead and add some links to main.py. So if you want to, you can go and open up main.py, scroll down to where you can find the JavaScript tracks, and then you can paste in, I'll put them above, they're also in the slides, the links for things in this track. You'll notice that there are 4 folders, and that there's a bank account, a baby exercise, dice without friends, and lights out. But we only actually copied in 2 links, and that's because the bank account and the baby ones, they're kind of too lame to warrant a link, right? So there's no UI. So I decided not to give them a link from the homepage. You'll still be submitting them, and that all works fine, even without a homepage link. But now when you've got your portfolio of like all the work you've done, those 2 won't be in the portfolio because they're not very impressive. But that's what we're going to work on first. So I was just kind of paving the way for things to come later in this unit by putting those links in now. So let's go ahead and start in on this guy. So what I want to do is I want to look at bank account. So bank account, if you open the HTML, you can see that it's not actually very impressive, right? So it's got a title, it's loading in jQuery, it's then loading in 2 JS files, and the actual like body just says all the outputs in the console log. Sometimes when you look at pages like this, that's because there's going to be a lot coming for the UI in JavaScript. That is not the case here, right? This really is the only HTML we're ever going to have on this page. And so if you go look at it, you can open it up with the Chrome. So I'm just going to say open with System Editor. And if you inspect element on it, you can get the console log. And so there's no console logs yet because we haven't even done that much. But inevitably, the only thing you're going to care about in this whole thing is the console log. So it's nice to have Chrome up just so you can see the console logs, but there won't be anything in the UI. Next up, you can go look at the JavaScript files. You can see that there's a bankaccount.js file, which is empty, and main, which provides the namespace and a document ready, but then it really doesn't do much either. So we haven't really done much here yet. So let's go talk about what we are going to do. So I've kind of said that we're going to be making objects in JavaScript, but the question is, does JavaScript actually have classes? So classes are used to make objects. Objects know stuff. Objects can do stuff. So they've got instance variables. They've got methods you can call on them. And technically, JavaScript has no classes. That is a true technical statement. But due to the way there's this thing called a prototype, you can create objects that know stuff and can do stuff. So yeah, I can create objects. But technically, is it a class? Well, no, but I'm going to call it a class just because that's the language that I'm kind of used to speaking from other programming languages that I look at. So let's go figure out what we're going to write. So what we're going to make is we're going to make a bank account class. A bank account is going to have a name and a balance. Those are like instance variables that it's got. And then it's going to have functions like deposit and withdrawal that you can call on the objects. So this is what it's going to look like. We're going to start just by making a constructor, and then that's going to be good enough for now. So go ahead and open up the bankaccount.js. If you want to, you can kind of copy a little bit of the namespace from main.js. And so what we're going to do is we're going to use that namespace, and then I'm going to say bank account. I choose to use uppercase, class case for something that's going to be a class. And what we're making here is actually a constructor, and it's going to receive a name and a balance. And you'll say, hey, this constructor, it looks a lot like a function right now. And I'd say, that's a good point. And we're going to say this dot name, so that's the instance variable, is equal to whatever they passed in for the name. And this dot balance is equal to whatever they passed in for the balance. And so that is our constructor. It looks exactly like a function for good reason. That's because the way that JavaScript does classes is that the constructor is just a function, and then the real magic is going to be in the keyword new. So let's do this. Let's make an instance of this class. So I'm going to say var Bob, and Bob is going to be a new rh.objectbases bank account. It is kind of annoying that you need to type out the entire namespace, but that's just kind of how the system works. We'll start Bob off with a balance of $100. So really there's a couple things going on here, but it all really comes down to this word new. So instead of just calling the function, if we had just called that function, it would have run and returned nothing. But since we said new, what it does is it makes essentially a copy of that function, and that copy has the same prototype object that it points back to. I've said that word prototype a couple times. We'll talk about it more in a little bit. So now we've got a new variable called Bob using the constructor bank account. And we can do things like we can print him. So we can say bob.toString. Now it's not going to be a very impressive print statement yet, but I just wanted to show you that it is an object. You can call toString on it, and it's just going to say, object is an object. It's not very exciting. So let's go ahead and run it, and let's see what we should be getting so far. So if you refresh this, the only thing it'll say is when you call toString on an object, it just prints out a little message like this. But that shows that it is actually working. If that's not good enough for you, you wanted to look a little bit more, we could inspect the variable. However, if we type Bob right now, it'll say, it's not found because it's a local variable inside that function. If you wanted to fix that, though, by adding the word var, it made it a local variable. If we delete the word var, that'll make it a global variable, and it'll be visible everywhere. This is not really useful. I'm just trying to let you do a little bit more. So now if I say Bob, I can see that Bob has a toString that kind of looks a little bit better whenever I do them this way. And if I want to say Bob.name, I could get his name as Bob, and Bob.balance, I could get that his balance is 100. I just did that for quickie testing. To be honest, though, I do want this Bob variable to be a local variable inside this function. So all we've done is we've made a instance of an object, and that's good enough for now. It knows stuff, it just isn't able to do stuff yet. Come back next time, we'll write some methods.